Good morning, YouTube. It is Friday. Getting ready for a great weekend. I think this weekend I'm going to go out into some of these new roads I haven't explored on yet and just try to get out there and ride a little bit. Again, I had to get up super early this morning to get off to work, so I'm missing that sunrise. That is still beautiful, even though the sun isn't peeking over those trees. Still beautiful. The last video I did, I featured a music group called Pickle Holler. And they're from the Athens, Georgia area. The neat thing about this group is that the guy that sings in it, he is the brother of a friend of mine I had when I was, I think, maybe 5 and 6 years old. Now, I moved away from that area at age 7 and really didn't keep up that well with them that much because we had moved so far away. And then all of a sudden I go to this music festival and there he is. It was just like, wow, we've come full circle now. What I really like about the group is they take folk and bluegrass style music and you know, they kind of redoing it a little bit. I really like that style of music. Of course, in there again, I do like almost every style of music. I was a music major in college. Speaking of music, I've been reading a really great book. This guy has written several books, besides being one of the greatest drummers of all time. Neil Peart from the group Rush. He has several books out, and I've been reading one of his books. And at the very beginning of this book, he's discussing some of the things he's read and that has guided his life and the way he lives his life. And one of them just happened to be Hemingway and his journeys up Mount Kilimanjaro. Well, Neil Peart gets to a certain peak at Mount Kilimanjaro, and all of a sudden he decides, you know, I think this is far enough. And in the book from Hemingway, he discussed that, you know, Mount Kilimanjaro has all these peaks, and sometimes you may think that you have gotten to the summit, the top of that mountain, and you're really just on a peak, and there's much more to go above that. Neil Peart continues in his book discussing, you know, continuing on past that peak to a point of greatness. And he quotes Buddy Rich in saying, and I'm not direct quoting, this is paraphrasing, that, you know, we never really reach greatness, and when we feel like we have reached a level of greatness, then we have kind of plateaued. And I think that's really cool. It's a level of goodness, not greatness. Because when you feel like you've become great, then you're only at a level of good that you have decided is the best that you can do. I know that's a lot of philosophy this early in the morning, but you know, I love reading books that are like that and hearing their success stories and what drove them to their success. You know, Neil Peart has had a lot go on in his life. Besides touring with one of the greatest bands for progressive rock, the group Rush, You know, he lost his daughter as I believe she was headed off to college, and then his wife not long after that to, if I'm not mistaken, she had cancer. But you know, that his entire family was gone. And he goes on in some of his books about that. He took an entire trip. He just took off from the tour with his band after that happened, and decided that he was just going to ride his motorcycle all over Canada. Well, he went more than just Canada. I think he went pretty much all over North America. And he journaled that. And that was a great read. I actually gave that book, after I read it, I gave that book to my drummer in my band, who is a big Neil Peart fan. So, you know, I think that was a great book gift to someone, because my drummer as well has had a close interaction with, or a close encounter with, death himself. So I think there's a little bit of a connect there, and being they both play drums, and you know, he really tries to get every little lick down just like Neil Peart does, and he has studied Neil Peart's playing and also Buddy Rich's playing. So, you know, I thought that was a great book to give him so he could read it. The bad thing is I can't remember the name of the book. Just about all of Neil Peart's books are like Far and Away, Away and Afar, Far and Near, and things like that. So, you know, just look at the dates if you really want to read them in order. Look at their publishing dates when you order them, and start reading them from the first one to the last one. As for me, I don't really care too much about things being in order when I read them like that, not unless I'm reading something that's like Harry Potter or something like that. You know, of course you need to read book 1 before you read book 7. Did they come out with a book 7? I don't know. I didn't ever read Harry Potter. I just watched the movies. But I think that level of greatness that he speaks of is something that, you know, many of us strive for, but we plateau. We get to a point in our lives that we say, this is good enough. This is great. And just understand, whenever you feel like you're at the very best and you are the best, there's someone out there that has not been discovered yet that's better than you. You cannot just stop improving yourself. I actually read that part of the book just before going to the interview for this job I've got right now. And those words spoke so high to me that, you know, I even paraphrased it in my interview, talking about those that are trying to go from good to great, and those that feel like they're at great, and they sit there and celebrate themselves as such when they've only reached a level of goodness, and they just stop improving themselves. There's always room for improvement, and by saying that, there's always room for improvement of driving your motorcycle. That's the reason why I love to watch Moto Jitsu with Fast Eddie. He is always out there trying to improve his motorcycle skills. And while watching that, I found out some information I did not know about him. He was a United States Marine. He was a drill instructor. He was also an instructor for the drill instructors. So I think that was really cool, you know. He was a martial arts instructor for the Marine Corps. So, you know, there's a lot of neat things you get to meet about people and get to know about people through YouTube and their YouTube channels sometimes. You know, I really just started watching him because he had some really good riding tips And I come to find out that these are more than just riding tips. A lot of these are habits instead of just tips, things that we should start doing and make it habitual while riding, and trying to break bad habits. One of my bad habits is as soon as I get to a stoplight or a stop sign, I put my bike in neutral. That way I can take my hand off the clutch. Well, I started doing that back when I had carpal tunnel. I now had the surgery and I don't have that numbness in my hands like I used to. So I need to break the habit of taking my hand off the clutch while at a stoplight and keeping my motorcycle in gear.